It's been a while. Welcome back. So, yeah, major events happening today. Later today in the U.S., we do recall that President Ramaphosa went to United States for a meeting with President Donald Trump. They're meeting later today. What can we anticipate, in terms of their discussion?
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon to your viewers at home, and good afternoon to you. Thank you for welcoming me back. As you have just highlighted, today we have a very important meeting for the South African economy, for South African politics. We have a meeting of the two heads of state, President Ramaphosa and President Donald Trump. This is a very vital meeting, especially because of the recent allegations that have been thrown around, especially towards South Africa, around white people being persecuted and the existence of a genocide that's sort of targeted to white people. So I think this meeting is important for Ramaphosa to clarify those allegations and maybe amend or mend the relationship between the two nations. But this meeting will definitely be very important for the economy in South Africa. So we expect a positive. If it goes in a positive way, we expect that the rand will react. The equities in SA will also react towards that. But we are yet to see, and we are waiting for that meeting to commence. And yes.
Yeah, in the interest of time, let's just move on. And still on Trump's world, he has introduced the Trump's tax bill. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So as you can note, currently the US dollar is not doing so well. So President Donald Trump have presented a bill. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is a big name for this bill. But this bill, it pertains specifically to tax. Donald Trump intends on cutting or giving tax breaks to big corporations and individuals in the United States. But in order to be able to achieve this, he needs to cut spending from the government's perspective. So the tax breaks that he intends to provide are summing up to 4.9 trillion, which is a big margin. So what was the course of events is that he's supposed to convince the Republican caucus to back him during the votes in Parliament. So he was not able to do that recently yesterday, after this bill was passed in the budget committee. So there are still amendments that need to be done before the bill can go through, because they have suggested that the bill needs to clarify how deep these cuts are going to be, so that they can measure the effect and map it into the tax break to make sure that this does not lead to a ballooning budget deficit, which is already very high in the U.S.
Yeah. Just before we get into today's figures, let's still on the U.S. I saw that inflation numbers have been released in the United States. What do they reveal really?
Yes, so technically we have that the economies, what they do is we have inflation targeting monetary policy, which means we have a specific range that is targeted. So we move our interest rates in order to make sure that inflation fits in that range. So what we have seen is that in South Africa recently, the target have been 3% and 6%. So what has happened is that in the past few months, inflation have been low. Like it's been 2.6, 2.7, and of late it's 2.8. It just moved from 2.7 to 2.8. But this is still outside the range that's the sub-intense inflation to be in. So what they have proposed is that soon, we don't know when, but the Deputy Minister of Finance announced that they will announce a different range that they will be targeting. And this is a big step, because we have seen the current range. It's been in place for a very long time. So we still wait to see what's the new range, because in 2024, the inflation was averaged at 4.4%, which was in line with the fiscal policy or the monetary policy. But now the estimate is that the inflation will only reach 2.8 maximum, which is outside of the target. So we expect that there will be a change in the regime or on the monetary policy side. So we are still, even on that end, we are still waiting for the announcement from the SAP, of which it will happen soon.
All right, so let's take a look now at currencies today. Today, Minister of Finance in South Africa is expected to table the budget for the third time. But let's take a look at currencies. How are they performing today?
So as you can see, the rand have gained some ground. It's currently at 17.9084. Like it opened at 90. It's currently gone lower to 86. We have seen the pound gaining some ground too. But for the pound and the euro, it's slight ground, and it really pertains to what's happening in the US currently. Yeah. And for the rand, we have this anticipation, and we also have these inflation numbers that have improved, but they are still outside the range. So with inflation being so low, we expect that the SARB might cut interest rates. So economists are now projecting that there might be cuts in July, there might be also cuts in the fourth quarter. Okay. So, but with the economic environment that we're seeing today, there's a lot of volatility, so that's not going to be confirmed. Otherwise, the currency in SA is currently doing very well, and we expect that today's budget will be a successful one after we've seen the first failure and the second failure of the budget. But mostly those hindrances came from the VAT, which led to a lot of disagreement between the political parties, and even on the second round where we saw the budget was voted, but we saw the DA and the EFF take the Minister of Finance to court to try to stop the VAT. So we think that this budget will not have that aspect of the VAT. It might have alternatives to generate the amount of revenue that's needed by the government. Okay,
quickly, let's take a look at commodities this afternoon. How are they performing?
So in terms of commodities, we have gold. Gold is up 0.81%. We also have crude, which is also up 2.5%. You can see that Brent crude is up quite a bit. And this stems from an intelligence that's been leaked away. So there was a CNN report that happened probably earlier today, and it suggested that Israel is planning an attack on Iran. So this is a leak, but it's giving that, it's not confirmed, but it's giving an intention from the Israel side to attack mainly nuclear facilities in Iran. And this is going to definitely affect the flow of crude oil from the Middle East. And this is a very, very bad timing, considering that the US and Iran are currently in negotiations for nuclear trade deal. Okay. So there's a lot of pressure coming from Donald Trump, and now there's also this revelation from the Israel side. So there are a lot of tensions around the Middle East, and that have also fell into gold, since gold is always observed as a reserve or a safe haven in terms of turmoil. If there's issues in the markets, investors will tend to go for gold. So in this case, it's because there's a lot of uncertainty. We have seen gold climb quite a bit. And this have been a trend since the beginning of Donald Trump's era, because he brought in a lot of uncertainty, and gold have really picked up. Beginning of the year or late last year, gold was at around 2.8, 2.9, but now we're seeing it climb way close to 3.5 thousand US dollars.
All right, quickly, let's take a look at equities today. We only have a minute to go.
So in terms of equities, we have the S&P 500, which is quite low. We have FTSE, the FTSE 500, it's up 0.94%. And the JSE All Share is also up 0.29%. So from the JSE All Share, it's benefiting a lot from the rand. That's gained a lot of strength. And the FTSE in the UK, we have a lot of corporations which are currently releasing their earnings, and it's a positive. There's a lot of positivity around there, and so it have gained a lot. For example, we have Vodafone, which gained 7.3%. We have the Diploma, which gained 15.1%. So the FTSE index is gaining a lot from the earnings that have been released recently. And in terms of the S&P 500, it's not actually doing bad. The drop is just a pullback after it had a quite a long run of gains, and investors are now reassessing the risk and making sure that they are not being over leveraged on the S&P 500. So what's happening now is that there's a lot of rebalancing of investors' portfolios, because we have seen they are not convinced that the S&P 500 will continue for a long time to make those gains. So this is just a pullback, and compared to last week, this is really still quite a high number, because last week it was at around 5,888.
Okay.
So there is still an increase there. It's just that investors are now being cautious, as this will not last long before they have the pullback.
All right, thank you, Sandiswa. Well, there you have it, today's market analysis with Sandiswa Dlamini. We've come to the end of our program. Thank you for tuning in. This was Nedbank Business Watch. We'll see you again next week for another